Well, at least the last game the A's played started well. Man, this podcast didn't start well.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, this is the danger of doing it live. I actually had a line that I kind of like to start it off, and I flubbed it here on Locked On A's. This is the podcast we talk about the Oakland A's, and like the A's, you kind of flub it and drop the ball. I can't hit reset. Do you know why? I'm doing this as a live cast. I'm your temporary host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I am the city of Sacramento for the Locked On A's podcast. I'm here making sure you all have an A's podcast 5 days a week. And we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I knew I was taking a little bit of a risk doing this one live, but what are you going to do? Hey, I see we already got some people watching us. So if you're a regular listener of Locked On A's, please drop us a comment. Please drop us a little something. If you want me to cover something, I'm going to be doing shows all next week as well. I have a couple of interesting interviews already lined up, including a couple of people you made. Old friend Jason Burke, who used to be the host of this show, is coming back, and he's going to be a guest for a day. Also, Dan Moore, who wrote a terrific article in The Ringer about everything that's going wrong about the A's right now and the situation in Vegas. But if there's other topics you want me to cover, other things you want me to talk about here, I'm going to try to, again, I want this podcast to be as positive as possible. You know, I could come in here and be Eeyore and just talk constantly about how everything's going wrong with the A's and wrong with this and that. But I at least like to start off by talking about the game, the players, and things that are happening. This is going to be an interesting episode because I said on the episode we dropped on Thursday that the A's, who have been playing a little better than people thought they were, they won 3 straight series. Even though they lost the series to St. Louis, they showed a lot of guts by having the win that they had on the getaway day. Everyone had a day off, had a chance to regroup, and it felt like if they could have a good series, got to win that first game against Cleveland, then you just got to split the next. Then you start building some momentum. You start building some wins. Now, A's fans, you have to admit to me right now, when Abraham Toro led off the game with a home run, you started nodding. I did. Started saying, okay, here we go. Look out, Cleveland, who, by the way, look like they have eerily similar attendance issues in Cleveland. What's going on there? Yeah, I know it's cold, but come on. What else are you going to do in Cleveland? I've been there. And then you're like, all right, Toro homers started off. They load the bases in the second inning, and you're thinking, here we go. It's going to be a win. It's going to be a win. Now, notice I've said I want this to be a positive podcast because I am focusing on innings 1 and 2 because that's where things felt positive. Even when Cleveland took the lead and it was 2-1, it was still 2-1 going into the bottom of the 5th. And I'm just, okay, all right, fine. Freeman hit a homer. Okay, that's going to happen. But then the floodgates just opened up. And that 5th inning, you got the Kwan double was, of course, the big blow. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the 2-1 game became a 4-1 game. And then Naylor homers. There's a kerclunk in left field because Brown decided to try to be a member of the Bad News Bears out there. And, they got the home run by Rooker at the end, but that was a little, too late. And what can we get that's positive out of today from that game yesterday? Toro's still hitting. Toro's at the top of the lineup. And Boyle did not. I mean, Boyle had that one bad inning. Let's be honest. He had one crap inning, and that was the fifth. But, and I know this is an astonishing concept, but the fact of the matter is they had Boyle go 6. I like it when they brought him on the 6th inning. They're like, okay, I'm in, because at least they're saying, hey, this game may have gotten away, but we're not going to burn through our bullpen. And they used Mueller to pitch the final 2 innings, and he was, that's not going to be something we're going to send to Cooperstown as a great relief performance. But Boyle went 6, and I like it when you can stretch a pitcher out and you're not going to have a worn-out bullpen. If you're going to get blown out, as my mom would say, the final score was a lot to not enough, 10-2. For a game that started off so wonderfully, it was 10-2. And we all can admit it was over after the 5th. And so maybe that's smart to just say, all right, none of our big guys are being used today. None of our big guys are being used. And there was, and therefore you keep everything going. Now, I am going to bring up, now it's funny. Tom Baldwin, who's a listener here, just sent a comment, and it was the exact thing I was about to say. So thank you, Tom Baldwin. It sounds like I'm responding to people's messages on here when I was about to bring this very thing up. He says, play Ruiz. That would be a positive. Let him learn like last year. Don't understand it, to be honest. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird. The A's are not exact. No one's going to mistake this team for the star-studded 1989 team. Okay? Not a lot of superstars on this club. And when you take a look at, I know I'm going to say something that is sacrilegious to the sabermetrics crowd, of which I know there are many in Oakland. I don't really follow WAR that much. I'm not one of these people who says it's invalid. I just have no idea how it's calculated. So I don't refer to it much because I feel fraudulent if I say he's a such and such WAR player and I have no idea how that's calculated. But I do think it's a good jump off point to try to see how someone's doing in terms of the rest of the team. And Ruiz is 4th on the team in WAR right now. 4th. Ahead of him are Blade, Miller, and Blackburn. So he's the 2nd highest WAR of any position player. And yet he's played 6 games. 6. He's batting .357. His slugging is 1,000. Yeah, it's a small sample size. It's 6 games. But why aren't they playing him every day? Isn't it kind of clear that he's one of the better players? Yes, Lawrence Butler got some big clutch hits and everything like that, but you're clearly not playing Brown for his glove. We saw that yesterday. Noda has been non-existent. I mean, couldn't you have something like maybe have Toro play first, start Ruiz, play the guy every day? You punished him, sent him in the minor leagues for wearing the wrong wristband. But goodness sakes, the guy led the league in stolen bases last year. All right? Get him out there. Have him wreak some havoc. You're right, Tom Baldwin. I don't understand why they're not playing him either. It better not be for any petty reasons. Because they can't, we don't have time for this. I'm going to invoke the Battle of Gettysburg right here. But if you ever see that great movie Gettysburg with Martin Sheen, it came out in the 90s. There's a moment when one of the Confederate generals is trying to talk about, I demand honor and satisfaction for the insults that have been thrown my way. And the great Martin Sheen's playing Robert E. Lee saying, we don't have time for that right now. We don't have time for that. Now, granted, more was on the line in the Battle of Gettysburg, and quite frankly, I'm glad the North won. But I'm looking at any sort of pettiness involving Ruiz. We don't have time for that right now. There's not enough players to bench Ruiz. The lineup isn't so airtight then you could say, hey, a guy who led the league in stolen bases and is slugging 1,000, let's have him ride the pine. While your first baseman's OPS is under 500. And your left fielder, his OPS is 500, and he can't catch a fly ball. Play the best players on your team, especially when you're getting your butt whipped. So let's go. Let's go take a look. Today, the A's are playing game 2. So if they want to win this series, they have to win out in Cleveland. Tonight, they're playing Wood against Allen. File that under yikes. Allen's not off to a great start. Neither is Wood, but Wood can be a decent pitcher. But play your best players. There's not enough time. It's early enough in the season that you can still say, hey, maybe this isn't it's a lost season in terms of the team and everything's there, but maybe we can have some entertainment value instead of just going to the Coliseum for some sort of nostalgic last look. Well, when we come back from our break here, we're going to talk about the fact that, well, something going on. There's something going on with Las Vegas and the whole move to Las Vegas, which has already been as organized as a riot, may be facing some new snags. And have the A's really not done their homework at this point? Let's hear from our friends at FanDuel. Let me tell you, this is an amazing time to be a sports fan. Why? I'll tell you why. Because there's so much going on right now. The NBA playoffs are starting up. Isn't it almost ironic that a team from Sacramento eliminated the team that played in Oakland? I digress. Stanley Cup Finals. Go Sharks. They're not playing in it, so I got to pick another team. The baseball season's going on. All these great places to bet on games. And unless you're an interpreter in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization, let me recommend you go to FanDuel. FanDuel is a place where you get your number one picks of any sports book in America. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks to sacrifice bunts. All on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Epe, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, where do you get your sports news these days? Are you getting it on Fox Sports and ESPN? That's old school. There's a lot of yelling going around there. How about you make the switch to Locked On Sports Today? A free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring the biggest stories without all the screaming. It's streaming, not screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. So, looking at the Las Vegas Review-Journal the other day, because I'm just trying to get as much as I can into my brain. And SB1 is the I guess it's the organization that they're working with in terms of trying to come up with it's the Senate bill that is allowing the A's to have the finance and the ability to build a stadium in Las Vegas. And the State Bill 1 has given the A's 18, this is according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, 18 months from the date of their relocation being approved, which was last year, to enter a number of agreement with the Stadium Authority, which means they have about a year to get all their agreements in place. And the A's are planning on starting construction of the stadium a year from now. That right there is kind of disturbing in one way. And again, I've made my thoughts on the move to Las Vegas clear, but I'm not going to scream at the Tides. The A's are leaving Oakland. We all know that. And I have said that as angry as I am that the A's are going to be leaving Oakland, I'm a baseball fan too. I don't want them to fail. If they go to Las Vegas, I'd like it to be a success because I think it serves no purpose to root for failure. I don't. I don't think it will succeed because I think, and I've said this over and over again, I think Las Vegas is a terrible market for baseball. I think baseball is a local rooted team. It's a team, it's a sport where people root for their team based on their geographic location, based upon the roots they have to their community. And I see people like me, I'm a transplanted New Englander. And I see if you move around, people tend to stick with their fandom, whether they grew up in New York with the Yankees and in New England, the Red Sox. If they're in the Philly area, you stick with the Phillies no matter where you move to. And there's deeply rooted fandom in places like the Bay Area and like in Los Angeles. But when you have lots of transplants, we've found that out in Phoenix and in Florida. And I think we'll find out really soon in Las Vegas that they're not going to switch allegiance, especially to a team that's going to come in and be terrible in terms of the win-loss record, which I think we can all agree a couple of years playing on a minor league team in a minor league city like Sacramento, they're not suddenly going to have a Dodger-like payroll and be filled with all-stars. Hey, come sign with Sacramento. Share the stadium with the River Cats. So they're not going to start building the stadium for a year? Well, that makes sense because there's not been a stadium plan. There's not been, no rendering has been approved. But now we're starting to see some other things like, wait a minute, one of the other things that doesn't seem to be approved yet is where the heck the money is coming from. And the litigation that they are going to be facing like nobody's business. And it is absolutely astonishing that we're still dealing with this right now. There's going to be so many lawsuits going around here because right now they're questioning whether or not any money beyond, I guess it's the $300 million at SB1 is going to be considered unconstitutional. And when you start to see that this could be a long, drawn-out battle in the courts, and the A's don't have something like renderings, an approved site, an approved building, where it's going to be built, who's going to build it, and how it's going to be paid for. The details, little tiny nitpicky details. And they're about to go into court battles, wondering if it's even allowed into the Constitution of Nevada, where public money being spent for billionaires is never going to be popular. Now, if this was a privately funded stadium or predominantly private, like the majority of it is private funded and they're fixing the infrastructure in the streets like they did with the new stadiums in New York, like they did with the stadium in San Francisco, I would have no problem with it. But the fact that they're asking for public money is part of the huge problem here. And the idea that they're about to go into litigation with people who are going to be really, really adamant that this doesn't happen, there could be a moment where all the folks in Vegas look around and say, we haven't even put a shovel in the dirt yet. You know what? Let's do something else there. The stadium, in so many ways, I know they want to build it on the Strip and it becomes part of the Strip and everything like that. It's going to be used 81 times a year. If they make the playoffs, it'll be a few more days. But they're not going to, most days it's going to be sitting empty. It's not going to be having big concerts every night. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there are other places for concerts in Las Vegas. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there are other forms of entertainment in Las Vegas other than seeing a 95-loss team where the locals don't care about it and the people who are tourists will only go if they're seeing the Yankees or Dodgers or Red Sox when they're passing through town. If they say, do you know what? There's some other thing we could do here. Some other wild entertainment complex we can have here. Yeah, maybe we could do that. Football's different. Interest in football is national, not local like baseball. You could also play bowl games there. Have the Super Bowl there. have big concerts are more conducive in a football stadium anyway. You can have soccer games played there. You can use a football stadium a lot more easily than a baseball stadium. You're not going to have bull riding in a baseball stadium. It's going to be sitting there empty nearly 300 days a year. Or you can fill it up with something that, I don't know, will make money. And if it goes into litigation, say, what the hell are we doing here? We could make more money. Why are we spending all this time and energy on this thing that's going to be sitting empty the majority of the year for a team that no one here cares about? What the hell are we doing? And the nanosecond someone says that and someone else comes and says, like, hey, this could be the new, I don't know, the new dome, the new casino, the new this, the new that. I don't know, but something more innovative than a baseball stadium sitting there with tumbleweed blowing around it. Said, we could do that and we won't be in this litigation forever. Bye-bye. That's why I think eventually the financial aspect of going like, hey, we'd rather build something there than sit in a courtroom. And court stuff can get drawn out. You may have noticed that a couple of things that are going on right now. Like, they're still trying that? Yeah. We could wake up and it could be 2027 and they're still in courtrooms and no one stuck a single shovel in the ground and they're about ready to play season 4 in Sacramento. And they still don't know where the money's going to be. They had to say publicly, yeah, we're looking to figure out how to pay for it. Pay for what? The stadium. What stadium? We don't know yet. Someone else is going to propose something there. Hey, I got an idea for this. It's a hotel. It's got a casino. It's got this wild, surreal AI type of entertainment that people are going to come from all over the world to see 365 days a year instead of a half-empty stadium, if that, watching a 95-loss team that no one in Las Vegas cares about. Which one would you do if you were all about the money? And Vegas is all about the money. You've seen Bugsy. All right, well, Rainbow Maid says, Tropicana, baby. No, wait, back to Rio. What? No, I mean, Wild Wild West. Yeah, exactly. It's like playing whack-a-mole. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. We come back and we're going to look back at what could have been a glorious moment for the A's that was pretty great when it happened. And for me, it's one of my most agonizing what-ifs in the history of baseball. Let's hear a little bit from our friends from PrizePicks. You know what PrizePicks is? Have you heard of PrizePicks? PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. With more than 3 million members, it's the easiest and most exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just pick more or less than and 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. You know what? There's a great time. As I said, the basketball playoffs are starting in earnest right now. Yowza. Get in on the playoff action. Win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the NBA playoffs. If you're into baseball, I think I am. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the Diamond and PrizePicks entry. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs. Hey, that would be yesterday with Toro's homer. Make your pick of more than or less than. Add them up with your PrizePick entry today. PrizePicks is the best way to get on the action on sports in more than 30 states in the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And I assume Nevada because they let everything happen there. PrizePicks is simple and easy to play. I can make my picks, submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy app. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposit to your account this basketball season. So, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Let me repeat that. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. You know what? I got to tell you something. In the end, it's that easy. Here's a quick reminder that Locked On has created the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Say that 3 times fast. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channel app. I'm going to tell you a little story. In 1982, my family, I was still living in New England at the time. We hadn't moved to the Bay Area yet. But your pal Sully was 10 years old and already a baseball historian. I was reading every baseball history book I could. We took a trip to New York City, and we were in the Grand Hyatt Hotel, which was run by a certain Donald Trump. And I took the elevator up because back then 10-year-olds could just walk around New York by themselves. I took the elevator right up to our hotel room, and I looked over in the elevator, and I saw Billy Martin. And I knew it was Billy Martin. And I was staring at Billy Martin. And Billy Martin looked at me. And I stared at him like he was a Yeti. And he just said, "Hi, kid." And I said, "Hi." 10-year-old Sully said, "Hi." And I was floating off the ground. But I realized, what the hell is Billy Martin doing in New York? I'll tell you what he was doing in New York. He was signing with the Yankees to manage the 1983 season. What the hell does this have to do with Locked On A's? Because Billy Martin, the previous year, 82, was the manager of the A's. Billy Martin did arguably his greatest managerial achievement with the A's. Now, most people associate Billy Martin with the Yankees and being fired and refired and fired and refired by George Steinbrenner. And he also was a great player for the Yankees. World Series hero. He had a walk-off hit to clinch the 1953 World Series. Was the MVP. Would have been the MVP of that series if they gave it out. But he wore out his welcome as a player in New York, and the end of his career just bounced around from a team. His last bunch of years, he's with the A's, he's with the Braves, he's with the Reds, he's with the Tigers, he's with the Minnesota Twins. He's just bounced all over the place. And while he's mainly remembered as a manager for the Yankees, lest we forget, he managed the Twins to the ALCS, he managed the Tigers to the ALCS. He took over a Rangers team from Whitey Herzog and turned them into a contender. Then he came to the Yankees, took them to 2 straight pennants, winning the World Series in 77, but kept clashing with Steinbrenner. And he was the manager in 1979. That was his second tour of duty with the Yankees. And then he got into a fight with a marshmallow salesman at a bar. He got fired again. I know that reads like a Mad Lib, but that's true. He had many demons and addictions, and he famously battled with alcohol and womanizing, but his greatest addiction was the Yankees, and he seemed to do anything to torture himself to get back to the Yankees. But Charlie Finley still ran the A's, and his last gasp as the owner of the A's before selling it to the Haas family was bringing in Billy Martin. The A's were an absolute mess when he arrived. The greatness of the 70s were gone. They couldn't attract 500,000 for a season. They were about to move to Denver. Only the fact that the Raiders were going to move saved the A's from moving. And then they handed Finley and eventually Haas handed the car keys to Billy Martin. And they had a winning season because that's what he did. He turned teams around. Out of nowhere, they had a winning season in 1980. And then in 1981, they shot out of the gate. And they had good pitchers. Matt Keogh was there. Norris was there. They had Tony Armas and Dwayne Murphy were there. They made it to the playoffs, and they had Rickey Henderson, who probably should have won the MVP in 1981. And under Billy Martin, set the stolen base record and made it clear that he was going to surpass and lap Lou Brock left and right. And it became clear that under Billy Martin, he found his great player. If Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan and eventually Kobe, Billy Martin would have had Rickey Henderson. Rickey Henderson was one of the 5 greatest offensive players in baseball history. Fight me on that. But here's the other thing. The demons of New York were not there in Oakland. Billy Martin was from Alameda. And he had won in New York. He won the World Series in 1977. He had nothing to prove with the Yankees. And in an ESPN special I saw about Billy Martin, Martin's son saw how happy he was in the East Bay, free of the New York pressure. He described his dad as getting a tan and developing a healthy gut instead of that gaunt alcoholic look that he had. He never wanted his dad to go, and he said, "Stay here. You don't have anything to prove to Steinbrenner. You have nothing to prove with the Yankees. In fact, your legacy will grow if you continue to win in Oakland." But he lost the ALCS to the Yankees. And the Yankees were in complete disarray in 1982 when Reggie Jackson left and the team was kind of in flux. It would have been the greatest middle finger to Steinbrenner and company if Billy just stayed in Oakland instead of being drawn back. Because the Yankees, while they won a lot of games in the 80s, never got over the top. After the 81 season, granted, there was no wild card back then. There was just a division winner in the East and a division winner in the West. But the Yankees could never finish in first place. In a couple of the years, they were downright bad. But Steinbrenner knew that Martin was more addicted to the Yankees than he was to alcohol and to women. And the trial balloons were sent out that, if only, the Yankees went through 3 different managers in 1982 while Billy Martin was running his pitching staff into the ground. And Steinbrenner saying, if we had a Billy Martin here, we'd be winning. If we had a Billy Martin here, we'd be winning. In other words, Billy saying, well, could that mean I could come back? Does that mean I could come back? And despite the fact that his son was saying, please don't go back, he went back. He went back in 83, was pushed up he didn't manage in 84, came back in 85 where they fired his friend Yogi Berra so he could get the job again. He went to the broadcast booth in 86, came back as a manager in 88, clashed with Steinbrenner, got fired again. But before the 1990 season, Steinbrenner was all ready to bring him back when, drunk out of his mind on an icy road, Billy Martin crashed his car and died. He was not yet 60. What would have happened if he stayed? What would have happened if he said, I don't have anything left to prove. I've won a World Series. I've won World Series as a player and as a manager in New York. And now I'm home. And I'm going to revive this franchise. As it turned out, the franchise was revived without him because the Haas family became, say it with me, the greatest owners the Athletics have ever had, whether they were in Philadelphia, Kansas City, Oakland, Sacramento, or Las Vegas. But what would have happened if Billy said, you know what? I'm going to be happy here. Let's develop a team around one of the 5 greatest offensive players of all time. What could have happened? We may never know. And Tom Baldwin, who's listening here, says, I vividly remember those Billy Ball A's, complete games and lots of stolen bases. They were fun years. They were fun years. So, follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and I'm going to continue being your guest host, you know what, as long as I can. So, talking about bad stuff that happened last night, weird stuff happened in Vegas, and what could have been in the past. This has been Locked On A's for the 20th day of April 2024. Come on, let's win in Cleveland. You can call me Sully